1, 2, 3.
Hello and welcome to Green Queens, the perfect podcast for imperfect environmentalists. We're your hosts, sustainability and climate presenters Imogen and Abbie, and this is your guilt-free guide to living a little greener.
We have made a very special trip, once again on our school trip to central London. We're at 109 Bond Street, such an exclusive address, with Jamie, the founder of a beautiful diamond company. Hello and welcome to Green Queens, Jamie.
Hi. Really excited to be here with you guys today.
Well, we've come to you. Look at this incredible space that you've created. We knew as soon as we wanted to get you on the podcast that we wanted to come here and set up here because this is such a gorgeous space. Do you want to start by telling us a little bit about your company?
Oh, gosh. The brand was launched to actually educate consumers on lab-grown diamonds. And really what they are. I mean, there are a lot of misconceptions out there which were, saying that lab-grown diamonds are fake and they're synthetic. And I've been in the fine jewellery industry for about 20 years, and I've been following the growth of lab-grown diamonds probably for the last 10 years. And I knew that someone had to go out there and say what they really are. And, they are diamonds. And so on the back of that, I started working for a lab-grown diamond. She was a consultant. She wanted to set up her own jewelry brand. And I started to hear some stories from her, which no one really had access to. And it was really the fight to where lab-grown diamonds are now. And it made me, really want to share that story and give lab-grown diamonds the platform that they deserve and that they have now. And so quite quickly after that, I was working with Selfridges, and the head buyer really liked the idea of this brand that I had in my mind. I never thought that I was actually going to go out and do it, but it was like, oh, if I had a brand, it would be like this, and this is how the store would look, and it would be an experience. And I'd love to offer clients that service, which, is no longer really met in those heritage fine jewelry brands now. And so as we were talking, it was actually a 30-minute slot, and we ended up talking for about 2 hours. And at the end of it, he was like, I really, really like your concept. If you could put together the brand within 3 months, you could have the space in the Wonder Room. And so I was like, okay, cool. So I just said yes, and that was really that. But what he really liked was the Lab 100 bracelet. And he said, I love that it's different, because he said, I keep on seeing the same old jewellery, and different designers using each other's designs. And he said, I just want to see something different. So if you can offer something different from the vitrines to the way, you're serving your clients, he said, I'd love that. And so we set up the brand within 2 months. So that was in January, and we launched in Selfridges in May 2023. And it was really just a pilot. We're like, okay, let's see what consumers feel about lab-grown diamonds. We didn't know whether we were going to be a success or not. So it was an expensive pilot because Selfridges are very, very, keen on ensuring that you do follow strict sustainable rules. So that's from where you get your carpet from, the material it's made from. Our vitrines had to have a certificate that said they were made sustainably, the materials were sustainable. So everything that we had in there had to be sustainable, and we had to be transparent in where we sourced everything from.
And you did that?
And we did that in 3 months.
Wow.
It was tough. Like, we were having 2 project calls a week, and all of us, like my sister, myself, and a few others that were working with this time, Carolina, every single call we were like, are we going to pass the test? Are we going to pass the test?
Yeah.
And we did. And as soon as we launched in Selfridges, we were really, really surprised, but we had, an entire set of demographics buying from us, and they were really excited to see lab-grown diamonds in the flesh. And so that consumer was out there. There was just nowhere for them to really, really go and see in a luxury capacity. And so with us, we found that you'd sit there and you'd say the facts, and within sort of 30 minutes, clients were sold. And we had an exceptional experience.
I think they just needed to see it.
They just needed to see it. And I think with people that just assume they're synthetic or they're fake, and all of the misconceptions online, consumers had to see it. And when you see the diamond in the flesh, you're like, okay, I get it. It's a diamond. You test it. It's a diamond. You see the certificate. It's a diamond. And once you've got the facts, you're not selling a brand or a store, you're selling the product. And it was just a no-brainer, I guess, for clients. And I think what was really nice is that we saw women in their 60s buying, who've been buying from, the heritage brands, coming into Selfridges to buy from Tiffany's or De Beers or wherever. And they ended up buying beautiful pieces from us. So it was a really good experience. And that's what led us to having this beautiful store on Bond Street.
And I wonder if we could just ensure that all of our listeners are on the same page. Could you walk us through the difference between a mined diamond, a synthetic diamond, and a lab-grown diamond?
So mine diamonds are grown below ground, and I'm just going to keep it as simple as possible. Lab-grown diamonds are grown above ground, so they're grown in a laboratory under controlled conditions, that's the word, with scientists monitoring the growth. They typically take around 2 weeks to about 3 months to grow, depending on the type of diamond that's growing. And you really don't know what's going to be grown. So just like a mined diamond in nature, you don't know what's going to come out of nature. You don't know what's going to come out of a lab-grown diamond. So you would still source diamonds in the same way: color, clarity, cut, and then we would offer you that piece based on whatever's grown in the chamber. And they're cut and polished by the same people that cut and polish mined diamonds. So exactly the same.
That's nuts, because when and any listeners, if they can cast their minds back to GCSE chemistry, a diamond is carbon in a particular structure. How you've got to that particular structure doesn't really matter. It's still a diamond.
It's still a diamond.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing that consumers need to take away, is that it is a diamond. It's exactly the same. And really the only difference is where they're both grown.
And in terms of the impacts then above and below ground environmentally, do you want to run us through kind of roughly what that looks like?
With mined diamonds, there's about 25 people in the chain, and obviously mining is a very, very expensive industry, and so it takes its toll on the planet as well. With lab-grown diamonds, there's only really us, the laboratory in the workshop, that creates the beautiful pieces. So in terms of the chain, it's a very, very small chain which is controlled. So we have full transparency of where our diamonds are grown. The laboratory we use is Green Lab, and they're our preferred partner, where we can offer trips to clients to visit, so you can really see the conditions the diamonds are grown in, and how they're grown. So they're solared by, not solar by solar. They are powered by solar, and sort of the extra energy that's consumed is given back to the local communities. So yeah, I mean, it's massively, far more sustainable in terms of
Diamonds grown by sunshine.
Yes, that's exactly what I was
a nice one.
Yeah,
You can have that. Copyright that. I'll just take a diamond bracelet.
I'm just going to say that for the next one, like the solar. That always happens to me. But yes, and I think that, especially where we choose to buy our diamonds from, that's really, really important. And it's important for us to work with this laboratory, because they have, certificates that checkpoint all sustainable angles from inside their actual laboratory to outside their laboratory as well, which is quite important. And the fact that we can go there, it's a massive plus point. I mean, there's some labs that you would never be allowed to go and see what's actually going on.
Scary, that, isn't it?
And I think for this laboratory, they really are, their vision is clear, and it's very, very, very much in line with our vision as well. So they are sort of the luxury growers and the premium growers. And I think it's really important for our customers to know where our diamonds come from.
And very cool that if they wanted to, they could actually go and see the process.
Yeah.
So we'd like to do that eventually. We'd like to start taking clients out there on trips, I think, once we get to that stage.
Abbie and I are more than willing to join you on that trip. That's absolutely fine. But you described how when people actually saw the diamonds, they were like, oh, I get it. I understand that this is a beautiful product. It's actually a diamond. But do you see that there's a bit of legwork from a perception perspective, that people are still a bit snooty, perhaps?
We've seen that. We saw that quite a lot in Selfridges, because we were quite new, and it really did take education. I mean, I'm lucky that I have a gemologist on our team, so when I bring Carolina out, it's a little bit different. They see, okay, this is someone that's studied gemology, this is someone that knows the facts. And they feel a little bit more comfortable in understanding that, yes, they are diamonds, and they should feel proud to say that they're still wearing diamonds, especially from an ethical perspective as well. But you do have, the occasional consumer that's a little bit like, okay, I really still like my mined diamonds because of their, because they're grown underground, and it's connected to the earth. However, we don't really have much of it anymore. There was a lot of that last year, but I think now, we have customers who come in here who already know all about lab-grown diamonds, and they're seeking us out to buy lab-grown diamonds. So the education part really has sort of been done just because there's so many lab grown diamond brands out there now, you know, from e-coms to actual retail spaces now. But yes, it is perception. And I think that a lot of, you know, families have been investing in my diamonds as well. You know, it's something that we were always told, you know, to hand down to your children. And, you know, all the marketing that's been carried out through all the heritage brands. I mean, certainly for me, I grew up going, okay, I really want, you know, my diamond from Tiffany's or even De Beers, even though it was quite a new brand. And I think that a lot of those people that have a selection of my diamonds, you know, they really want to hand it down to their children, but actually their children now more than likely probably won't wear my diamonds.
It's interesting, isn't it, how that shift just has happened in the last few years.
It's really interesting to hear it.
You touched on when you were growing up, have you always been fascinated with jewellery and with diamonds? I mean, they are a girl's best friend, so understandably so.
Yeah, I guess that's just most girls, isn't it? Yeah. I think it was never diamonds though for me. I just loved gold. I really, really like gold, and I like colours. I love green. I loved emeralds, and my mum would always try to take us to like exhibitions and museums, and we used to go to the V&A quite a lot, and so we always used to be up in the jewellery space. For some reason, we always ended up there, and I just really loved it. I was always a really big art fan, actually. I was always like painting and never really doing anything else to do with school, but just that really. But yeah, we and as you know, coming from an Indian background, you know, jewellery is very much part of our culture. And my mum had a lot of gold when she got married, and so when we used to see her jewellery, you know, it was very like exciting for me and Ruby. It was like, oh, we're going through the jewellery box, and it was always fun seeing all this old jewellery because it was really antique pieces that my mum had, and you just don't find jewelry like that even within our culture now, that was made so beautifully. So for me it was always gold over diamonds. Yeah, I mean, launching the Diamond Lab really was for the consumer. Really, it wasn't really about me and my fascination with fine jewelry. It was really that I wanted consumers to have a space where they could go to buy beautiful fine jewelry that doesn't cost the earth, you know, quite literally.
Yeah.
But if it was down to me, I'd have everything like solid gold and really, really heavy, and then maybe like a little tiny diamond. But
so my mother-in-law is also originally from India, and like my 30th birthday, I was getting sort of some of her old jewelry. My wedding jewelry was all hers, cool. And it's like so soft but so ornate, and it's amazing.
So much detailing, right?
Yeah,
it's really, really beautiful. Especially the coloured stones. So what I do love is that we have now introduced coloured stones, lab grown. They're not as easy to source, but we've got sapphires, we've got some emeralds, and actually we found that clients really, really love coloured stones. So we're going to launch a collection based on Indian jewellery, actually, but like the trio collection. So it's 3 colours. And it's based on luck and health and wealth and all of these things. And so hopefully we can launch that around September time, which will be really, really beautiful for us. And I think it'll be our signature line, and it will be focused around high jewellery, I think. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to try and redesign that old heritage jewellery into modern jewellery. So let's see how that goes.
If only I knew someone with a birthday in September. Oh wait, I do. It's me.
What's your birthday?
12th of September. So what would that be? What is my birthday?
Very good.
I feel like, what's the blue one? Is it a blue one?
Sapphire? I think because my husband's birthday is in September, and I think his is the blue one.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to remember it, is blue sapphire. I know, like when diamonds are March, kind of Aries, I think that's a diamond. I'm in May, I'm a Taurus, and I'm an emerald.
Oh, so am I. So
green. I love that I'm like, my stone is green. That's one thing I'm like, yes, I got lucky. And then I should know June, because Ruby's birthday's in June. I think is she not, is it not red? Ruby? It's not red, it's not Ruby. I think it's a pearl.
Oh,
I don't know, actually. Maybe it's Ruby. I'm not sure.
We're not here to quiz you on that, don't worry. But yeah, no, I mean, that sounds so exciting. And I think I've been following the brand for a few years now. And what has absolutely blown my mind is how quickly you have reached these incredible milestones.
Yeah.
Before you were really properly a business, you were already having a conversation with Selfridges. Then you had a shop, you were launching a flagship store on New Bond Street. And then you managed to get into Bicester Village, which is like, I would say brands work their whole lives to try and achieve these milestones. Jamie, and you've done it in the last couple of years. How on earth have you managed to do that?
I actually don't know. I mean, I don't have a life, that's for sure. My life is the business. I actually found the new Bond Street store before I had the conversation with Selfridges.
Seriously?
Yeah, I spotted the store a while ago. I was consulting for a brand, and actually I wanted to take the brand. I wanted the brand to open in this store, and I was like, it'd be amazing. Look, all the floors, and like I had this great vision, and then they didn't want to do it, and I was like, okay. And the agent was like, why don't you do it? Like, you've got this idea, and I was like, oh, I do. So I just pitched to the landlord. If he says yes, then you never know. Anyway, he said yes, and then months later, I had the conversation with Selfridges. So in the back of my head, I always knew that I wanted this store, and I wanted it to be a lab-grown diamond store, and I wanted art in here, and I wanted it to be an experience, and all these amazing, wonderful things. I've lost track of the question. Oh, where have I gone?
Just how did you do it? And I think
yeah. Sorry, back there, aren't we? How do we do it? I think with lab-grown, it's a new thing to a lot of the existing big retail brands like Selfridges and like Bicester, and I think for them it was a test. I think especially for Selfridges, like they hadn't done it before. Let's see how it goes, let's see how consumers respond, because obviously they've got all those Mind Jewelry brands, and it's it was a bit of a risk for them to go, right, we're popping in this huge lab-grown diamond brand. They're only here for 6 weeks, but might cause you some trouble, and it did. Lots of their clients transferred to lab-grown. With Bicester, we were actually talking to them for about a year before we actually took on the site, and it's not easy getting those spaces. We went through many presentations, many conversations. They waited until we had the store here. They came here, they saw the pieces, and I think it's something I always wanted. And so I think if you really want something, you work your way towards making it happen. It wasn't easy.
It strikes me that you get yourself into situations where you like say yes and then you figure out the logistics later.
Yeah.
That
Which
does happen. I kind of think is a very female way of dealing with it. You're like, yeah, it will be fine. And
and you're like, and it will be fine. You might put a lot of pressure on your body, and you might, not sleep for weeks. But you do it, and I think sometimes it's just a risk, right? Like if you don't do it, then what's going to happen? Really, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
But if we do it, then it's a success, great. And if it doesn't, then it's okay, right? Because both of us know, Bicester and ourselves, we were like, okay, let's see where it goes. Like, I was confident that we were going to do the numbers because I know what consumers want. We just needed the footfall, and the footfall was there.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how, so I heard this quote the other day, and it was like, it may as well be someone, so why not me? And it's like, someone's going to take this space on New Bond Street.
It's so true. And Ruby did say that in the end. She was like, oh, Jamie, I don't know if we should do it. It's going to put a lot of pressure on all of us. And everybody was a bit like, oh, I don't know, a lot of pressure. And I was like, it is going to be a lot of pressure. But if somebody else goes in there and it's not me, then I'm going to kick myself forever.
Yeah.
And why shouldn't I go in there? What's the reason for me not taking that space? And I think that's a really important question everybody should ask themselves.
It's also, what does it take to make a diamond? Pressure.
Exactly, yeah. We don't use that. We don't use that pun enough, actually. We really should.
I think that's the perfect, it's the perfect situation because of the fact that obviously you are a lab-grown diamond store, but also literally the conception of this brand has just been pressure left, right, centre.
Yeah, and I think...
But here you are still shining.
I think people also think, oh, you've got a store on Bond Street, you've got Bicester, you've got Selfridges, we've got lots of other exciting things happening. And I think they just think it comes effortlessly. If only there was a camera that sort of followed me, Ruby, Cameron, and, our sales team around, you'd realise that it's, far from effortless. Like, we work really, really, really hard. And hopefully, that's a reflection of what we're doing here now.
Well, you were describing before we clicked record that experience of going into the Bicester store, and you were like, we were painting, you were doing the electrical work. And I think that's something that not many people get to see, that, as a founder, you are being forced to wear 1,000 different hats all at once.
And I think, you have to be, and also with that comes being the bad guy, right? Because you have to make all the decisions, and sometimes the decisions you make aren't always going to be the decisions everybody wants to hear, but you've got to go with your gut instinct, and you have to do what's best for the business and for other people in the business, right? Because it's an ecosystem, it's not just me and the business, and so that's really, really difficult, I think. But also we've had, there was a time where we had a lot of people in the team, and you're like, okay, you've got all these people in the team, but also you're not able to actually delegate anything because no one can actually do the job the way you do it. And so sometimes you're like, it's just best as founders to just keep the team tight and to wear all those hats until there is a point in the business where you do have the time and the space to go, okay, now we're ready to bring in people to train them in the way we want them to work,
but also then release that control to a certain extent, which must be so difficult when it's your baby and something you have built from the ground.
And I think that's the one thing I've got to learn, is that it will never be perfect, like and I think that lots of founders need to know that, like, you have this great vision and passion, and yes, if it was just you doing it, it would be the best, right, because it's your way. But as soon as you relinquish that, you know, you've got to accept that it's never going to be your way. You know,
but also that other
fine,
people might have skill sets, or they might be able to add something that perhaps you
that
wouldn't.
you can't see, and you've got to be open to all of that. I think is very important, but it's difficult. You know, it is really difficult, and no one does see that, because, you know, really that's not the story, right? The story is what consumers get to see, which is really important. But I think all of that, and when your team see you doing all of that, it's really important as well, because, you know, it gives them that ability to go, okay, actually our founders do all of this when they're talking to clients. You know, it's not like we're so far away that you're not attached or see us around. But yeah, I never really knew what founder's life was going to be until I had this business. So
How would you sum it up in 3 words?
Yeah.
I don't think I'm allowed to use those words.
I think the size says it
I
all.
don't think I'm allowed to use those words.
Cameron is just looking over Jamie's shoulder like, don't say the words.
Don't say it. Don't say it. I'm actually looking at all these words up there.
Yeah.
Okay.
The art speaks
The
for
art
itself.
speaks for itself. Yeah, no, it's full on.
Yeah.
It's really full on. But each time you open a new site, you feel the buzz again.
Yeah.
You're like, yes,
This is why we do
For
it.
me, it's like when the hoarding goes up and the hoarding comes down. That's my moment. I'm like,
Yeah.
the first day, and then it's, you know, back to normal again.
So if you rewind back to when you first made that pitch in Selfridges, what advice would you give to that version of yourself?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I should have asked more time. I think, you know, maybe I should have probably asked for more time. I think 3 months was it was tight, you know, for all of us. I was actually consulting for another brand at the time, so I was working 22 hours a day for about
Wow.
2.5 months.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I was like, okay, I've got to do it, because I was funding it myself. We didn't take any investors until 2 months after Selfridges, so actually it was all self-funded, and so I needed to have that income in order to get Selfridges going. So if I'd had a little bit longer and I negotiated, you know, maybe giving us 6 months, it probably would have helped us even now, you know, just having that extra few months just to do things a bit more calmly. But
It's always that risk, though, isn't it, of asking for more time and then them saying no and going to somebody else.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's the big thing right now with lab grown. If we were another brand in another sector, fine, you know, great. But lab grown is moving so fast right now. And, you know, at a time when I started the company, nobody was interested. I mean, they were like, Jamie, don't do it, ruin your career. Like, you'll never get a job back in the fine jewelry brands. What are you doing? And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
See what happens. And now all of those guys are probably turning over more than we turn over, because they all had a load of money, because they already had mine jewelry brands and they were very successful doing what they were doing.
So a lot of brands have made the shift.
They've made the shift, yeah. And I think we gave people the platform, actually. As soon as we opened Bond Street, we saw about 20 other brands pop up. Lab
Really?
grown, fine jewelry, e-coms brands, all over the place. And I was like, well, I'm kind of glad I gave everyone that platform.
Imitation is the best form of
and the
flattery.
confidence.
Yeah.
And also it shows that there's an industry. Because before, we were pitching to investors and they were like, oh, but there's not really many people doing it. You'll be the first. And I was like, yeah, we have to be the first, because it's coming. Like, it is coming, guys. Like, you need to understand. And it was really, really hard. And now you're like, look, guys, there's about 30 brands out there now, and they've taken that market share.
Yeah.
So if we had, you know, the capital back last summer, we would have really, really pushed the brand and pushed sort of e-coms and digital marketing. But we didn't have it at the time. But we had enough money to open our store. And so this is really our advertising. It's the store, and we meet incredible clients being here on Bond Street, which is...
One of the things that you described is the experience that you wanted to create for those clients. And we've been walking around with our jaws on the floor being like, I would like that piece of art. I love this piece of furniture. And you also mentioned off camera that there's a slightly different price point for these diamonds as well compared to mine diamonds. So I wonder if you could walk us through what's the experience that you want to build for those clients?
I think for us, we just want clients to feel very relaxed when they come into the store. It is a Bond Street store. It is quite scary. It's a big store. And for those clients who are seeking something that is ethical and sustainable and they want to understand more about it, we've got the space. We've got a beautiful mezzanine where you can come and sit with our salespeople who have been in the industry for a long, long time. And, you get to have a cup of tea, you get to have a glass of champagne. And we offer that to everybody that comes into the store, whether you're coming to buy or whether you're just learning about the diamonds. And it's really important for me for people to feel at home in the space. And it's something that I've always encouraged everyone to offer the clients. I just think that as soon as someone feels at home, they feel relaxed and they're happy to, talk about their reservations. And we've also had clients, male clients who are like, oh, I don't know if my partner will go for lab grown. And we've talked them through the process and, to the process where they don't know how to propose, and we've helped them on that. And it's nice that when you start getting close to a client, you really get to understand them. And most guys are really, really nervous. And so it's nice to support them on that, on their journey. Their love journey, I should say. Yeah.
Also, that kind of non-snooty approach to diamonds is quite unusual, isn't it? And I don't come from a particularly wealthy background by any means. And as my family have always said, we really value nice things. And we've always, as a family, really worked hard for nice things. And when you do get that approach, when you walk into a shop, it's so disheartening because we always say our money is just as good as anybody else's. We might not have enough to buy the whole store, but we might have worked really hard and saved really hard to afford one thing in this store. And regardless of which one of those customers
get the same service and feel just as special, right? And I think that's really, I've worked for quite a few brands down Bond Street, and I've seen it all, and I've seen colleagues, and I just think that here, I'm just not going to have that. Everyone deserves to feel very special, and I think. Because
you're going to have a queue of people expecting a glass of champagne now. This podcast goes out.
Got lots of champagne now.
Yeah.
And it's access, isn't it? It's being able to give everyone access to fine jewellery. And it really shouldn't be a case of, one person can't afford it. And with lab grown, we offer that. You can buy a beautiful engagement ring from us for £1,500, and it is a significant size, and your partner is going to love you forever, and she's going to be really happy when she sees it.
But also then the backstory behind it. If you're educating that person to be able to go and propose with that information, how I would feel so touched if somebody got dropped down on one knee, and not only did they ask me to marry them, they also then told the backstory of the diamond and where it came from. I just think that's really special.
It is. And I think every time we see like a beautiful story, we're like, this is what makes it. This is what makes us different. And this is why our clients become our friends. Our repeat business is huge. And it's huge because we actually care about our clients. And it is all about relationship building.
Yeah. Some of them, I know obviously there is a smaller footprint attached to a lab-grown diamond versus a mine diamond. There's huge sustainability credentials there. But I know that you're looking at the whole supply chain as well. I wonder if you could share some of those other bits.
Oh, gosh. For us, if we're talking outside of in terms of our laboratory and the workshop, it's our ecosystem, right? It's the way we work in our building. It's the way we look after the things around us, and we try to be as sustainable as possible in terms of what we're offering in the store. So I like to buy seasonal flowers, and look after, and try to work with florists who are also family owned or local florists. We really want to work with sustainable artists, and artists that have messaging around their works, which is more about the planet and the future and how we can be better towards the planet. So there's lots of other things that we're looking at in this business aside from probably the actual fine jewelry chain. And I think every brand should probably be looking at that and from that angle as well, because it's not always just about the product and the packaging. So, the packaging that we used to have was made by a family in Ukraine, and they used like trees that had fallen down and had illnesses, and then they were made into beautiful jewelry boxes. And so those are the little things that we were working on when we were back in Selfridges, and we were like, these are the things that we can contribute towards sustainability and struggling families or charities. And I think that I think we were talking about it earlier, where being sustainable isn't just ticking a box, isn't just saying that our product is sustainable because we work with this laboratory, or it's just because we got our packaging here and it's got all its certificates. It's really about the way you embrace the whole ecosystem around you. And so that's my real take on, I guess, sustainability and in our workplace.
But I mean, we've had this conversation with a few people before. We were, for example, in Lush in Poole, and we chatted to a wonderful woman, Ruth Angelade, who I'm probably butchering the pronunciation.
No,
of her
I think
name,
you nailed
always.
that then.
I nailed it. But she mentioned the fact that these things always come with more cost, and that cost has to be absorbed somewhere, whether it's by the company or by the consumer. And it's a frustrating situation whereby making like the better choices for the planet are often also coming with an additional price point. But do you find that actually a lot of consumers, when they walk through the door here, they're already of that mindset anyway, so they understand the increase in nominal increase in price in order to
Yeah, I think so. I think we were saying, weren't we, how being sustainable it's not the cheap option.
No, never.
It's the sensible option, but it's not the cheap option.
Yeah.
I think our clients definitely understand that, for sure.
It's also just sort of hearing you talk about that. I think whenever you have something that you have invested a lot of money in, to be able to imbue it with a story is so special. And it's all of those things of, I went to this amazing company, they have these values, they work with like incredible local business partners, family owned companies, there's the trees from Ukraine. That's what elevates the thing beyond just being carbon and metal.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, we have one of our girls that works for us, she's lovely, Holly, and she tells the story to every single client that she meets. She tells the story about Ruby and I, and about the pieces that we have in here, the ornaments that we've had in here. Like some of these things I've collected on travels since I was like 15 years old, and they're still here, like that boat over there, and there's just things here. And she always says to clients, the reason why we built this brand and why these pieces are here, and what it means for us to share these pieces with our staff and our clients, and people do love the story, and it's a genuine story, and it's something where we're not just creating business that we want to scale and then sell. Like, that's not really what we're doing here. Of course, we'd love a business that gets to that point, but the more I think about it, the more I think, well, I'd love to just have this business as part of our family, like forever, where the values still remain, where the service isn't diluted, because as soon as you scale, we all know what happens to brands, right? You're like, oh god, they used to do that and they don't do it anymore, and they used to do that, and I don't want that for this brand, and I'd rather keep it small and keep it to maybe 2 or 3 sites where we control that, than just go really big for the sake of it. I think that's really important right now, and I think that's important to consumers. They love that, and I think every time you get a new client and they hear that story, they buy into that story. And then it's like, well, why are we going back? We're going back to them because we know the girls, we know the story behind what they've done, and they want to support that family. I think as soon as you get really corporate, you lose touch of where your money's actually going. We've had a client who said, I know that De Beers have a lab-grown diamond brand, but actually we don't really know where our money's going, right? It's a big corporation. With you, we know exactly where it's going. It's going back into your business to help it build. And I was like, yeah, that's true. That is happening. And I think that's what that's why lots of clients love to buy from us, I think.
Which I think is so not what you would expect from a store somewhere like this.
Yeah,
even
right?
If you're in Bicester Village. Like, it's so... This is why I just feel like we needed to celebrate.
It is weird, it's like, we are corporate, but we're not. We're in the corporate places.
You've just managed to achieve the unachievable, guys, by doing this, I think.
Kind of gone back in time, what those brands used to be.
Yes.
And I think that's what people used to love. They used to love, the people that actually created those brands. And when you hear about those stories, the brands have diluted. And of course they've had to, because they've got shops all around the world. And, you need to have those training and programs where there's just continuity whereas here it's like, the individuality is what actually brings everyone's story alive.
And I think we've gone full circle now. I think people are seeing the value in that, as you say, that the personal relationships that you can build, knowing where your money's going. And I know that you've touched a lot on some of the stresses and how chaotic the last few years have been in scaling and in doing what you've done. One thing we haven't really touched upon, which I don't want to dwell on too much, but I am super interested just to know as a female in this industry, people might think, oh, with diamonds, is it all women? Is it all women bigging up women? I don't think that's necessarily been your experience. I would say, yeah,
I've not
dealt with a lot of.
We've not really dealt with many women in our industry. It's generally men. It always has been men.
Which I think is interesting because you'd assume that a lot of the clients would be women.
Yeah.
But then I think, you know,
Clients-wise, a lot of our clients are women. Majority of our
I
clients
find
are
it
women.
so fascinating then that you don't deal with many women on a business
Yeah,
scale.
which is, and these questions have come up over and over again in our industry, and it's like, okay, why are there so many men that are designing jewelry for women?
Yeah.
But you know, they've done it well.
Yeah.
There's been great
We'll give them
collections.
credit where the
you know,
credit's due.
they've done well. But it is strange that there's not as many women
Yeah.
in that space, especially workshops. And so being Indian and, you know, working with a lot of Indians, because that's where, you know, the diamonds come from. A lot of the workshop owners are Indian. It's been not the easiest to deal with those men, especially when those were the guys telling me not to do it. And now, you know, they're all about lab-grown diamonds. It's hard because when you're trying to communicate to them when there's an issue, you can't do it. So, you know, you got to kind of be diplomatic in the way you speak to them, because they just don't take you seriously. You normally got to say it 5-10 times before they actually do anything about it, which is frustrating because I was saying to you, I did have somebody working for me in the Middle East who was helping me for a few months, and when he would go out and speak to the same supplier, it would be very direct, and I'd have the response quickly, and it would be rectified within, you know, a few hours. Whereas if I'm involved, it takes weeks, and it's just really, really tiring. And it's just when you've seen it, you're like, okay, there is an issue there. There is definitely an issue. So yeah, there's a lot of that still, and I think that's going to be around for a while, which is really sad. But I just hope it gets easier for everybody in our industry and women. I mean, a lot of the women that now own lab-grown diamond retailer brands are women. So I'm guessing they're going to be facing the same thing as me, but none of us really communicate. But it's the same supply chain. So
Of course.
yeah.
there's lots of stories to tell on that.
I feel like
Another day.
anyone who has worked in a male dominated industry, which I believe we all have, I think there's that sort of knowing, like, we've got a story or two
Yeah,
to tell.
we've got a story
Yeah,
or two to
we've got a
tell.
story to tell.
We've got also a very impressive bar off camera, which we'll pop later and we'll go into this.
Yeah, we'll definitely have a drink after. I think we need one. I just love that bar. It just never gets touched. It's like a piece of art.
Do you think it is just a case of not being taken seriously? Also, I don't know how old you are, Jamie, but you look like you could be 19.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I
that's
was
what happens. So I'm actually not that young, and everybody says that, and I'm like, if only you knew my age.
We need the skincare details.
You said earlier that you've been working in this industry for 20 years,
years.
and I was doing the maths.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
so
you're only
like,
12.
I remember being interviewed by, I can't remember what magazine it was, and she came back to me. She tapped me, and she goes, "How old are you?" And I was like, "What?"
A woman never tells.
And I was like, whatever. And then she was like, "Because you've done a lot, haven't you, for your age?" And I was like, "Yeah, because I'm not that young." I was like, but yeah, no.
But you do not have to tell us
No,
how
no,
old you are.
but I was
We're
just saying.
I've got a big birthday coming up.
You look so young, and I think being a female as well, do you think that those things mean that you're just not taken seriously?
Yeah, 100%. Like the fact that someone's had to ask me, you know,
Yeah.
like what your age is, you're like, okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
And I do come across quite young, like just the way I dress, you know, like I'm just like my trainers. Like,
We can hard
in my
relate.
T-shirt, like, and that's the way I like to just walk
Same,
around and
yeah.
be, you know, and I think that this age thing is just, it's a bit of a joke, you know. It's like, it's really how you feel, and it actually doesn't matter whether you've been in the industry for 10 years, 5 years, 20 years. It's really what you've done within that time.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been working since I was 15 years old. You
Yeah.
know, my first job was when I was 15, and my first job in luxury was when I was about 17. So, like, I've learned a lot
Yeah.
in that space of time. And
And I think one thing that we've figured out from chatting to a few women is the mention of going with your gut. I think a woman's gut and a woman's intuition is mighty fine.
Yeah, I think, and sometimes when you don't, and I've gone against the gut feeling, it's all gone to shit, really.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it really has. Like, and so you just got to take, I think sometimes for me, it's like I've got to take time away from everybody at work, time on my own, and just be by myself. And then the answers usually come to me. And I think that's really important. And sometimes like you get the answers and you're like, I don't want it to be that answer. I don't like the feeling that it's making me feel because I don't want it to be that. But you're like, it is that, isn't it? Because your gut's telling you that's what it is. And you've got to listen to it. Otherwise you crash.
We've been joking that whenever we go on a shoot, it looks like we're doing a school trip.
Yeah, we literally look like
You guys do look quite young.
join the crew because we go on some
actually.
really fun little school trips. Jamie, you can join that.
Yeah, still get asked for ID on buying alcohol. I'm like,
Oh.
please just don't.
We were at Hendu at the
Don't do
weekend.
it.
My job was to provide margaritas, and I got ID'd in loads of different supermarkets to try and buy the tequila.
How lucky are we, by the way?
I know.
Like, we are really lucky. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know girls that are like a lot younger than me, and they look a lot older. And you're like, what are you doing? Like, honestly, like you should be living your life right now. You shouldn't be putting, stuff in your face. You should just be like enjoying, like being young, instead of trying to be older, because it's not fun being older. That's what really upsets me when I see young girls. I'm just like, just chill,
Just enjoy. I know.
Just enjoy it.
You don't enjoy and you don't appreciate the lack of responsibilities until your washing machine is conking out on a quite literal. What happened to me last night? My washing machine conked out. F05. It is non.
Well, I learned how to actually set a whole washing machine up myself when I moved to Barcelona, because I couldn't get hold of anybody because I didn't speak any Spanish, and I was like, right, I'm just gonna do it myself. So I started googling all the pipes and putting them all in, and I was like, oh my god, my washing machine works.
It's amazing what we can do when we turn our minds to it.
That's so cool.
I was just chuffed to have been able to figure out that it was broken, whereas you've launched 12,000 diamond stores and fixed a washing machine, Jamie. But
Honestly, no idea.
I mean, you are. It's
I think we're gonna stop now. Well,
I was just about to ask you your future plans for the company. The Diamond Lab 5-year, 10-year goal plan. What are you thinking?
We've been offered 2 sites in the Middle East already. So when I was there in January, I was working on a few things, and I sort of, I guess, pushed it fast like I do. And I was like, no, I'm here for 4 weeks. I'm going to make sure this deal's done before I go. And it was done before I left. And so we're now negotiating technically when we can move into these sites. It's one hotel chain, 2 sites, one in Abu Dhabi and one in Dubai, and it's for an incredible hotel. I can't mention the name right now, but it is. It's top 3 in the world, and we are very excited about this because it just shows that we're aligned with those type of brands. And I think it's really important. Although we're established, we're still really new, and I think partnering with such hotels it's just going to elevate us in that space in the Middle East. We've got a lot of Middle Eastern clients. And while I was out there, I was doing a lot of mystery shopping, and they're ready for lab-grown diamonds. Like all the brands that were out there that used to do mined, I was going, it's all lab. So it's all lab-grown, is it? And they're like, yeah, but they can't. Service isn't there. I'm asking them a question. They don't know what they're talking about. You're like, if I get here with my team, it's game over.
How exciting!
So hopefully, all being well, we'll be in there by May, June time. It was supposed to be this month, but it's just like time just flies so quickly. We have so much to do here. So when we get there, it'll be great. So we'll tell you all about that.
Oh my god, this is a huge year, and just
but it's because consumers want it. It's not like I'm crazy and I'm like, I want to take over the world. Like really, I would just be happy with a store here. But consumers need it, and I think while you're trying to create a brand and capitalize on taking that consumer base, you only really get one chance. So your engagement ring clients, you need those clients. They need to be your first customer because you're happy for life. Whereas with us, we don't really do many engagement ring sales. We're mainly about women coming in buying beautiful earrings or a necklace or, something really special for them. It's not actually that core customer base. Whereas other brands, it's engagement rings. So we're very, very unique in terms of our selling point versus standard sort of jewelry brands.
When I told my husband that I was coming here, he was like, I just wish that you'd existed when he got my engagement
We get that a lot.
Yeah.
We had someone come in here from Flannels actually. He was like, I spent a lot of money on my ring. I was like, oh, did you? I was like, how much would this ring would have cost me? Oh, probably about $7,000. He's like, oh, right. He literally spent thousands and thousands.
We need to go and have a little look downstairs, and you need to give us some comparisons as to, okay, this costs this much here in a...
Well, sometimes like this bracelet I'm wearing, I mean, that's a 5-carat marquise, and that would probably be about 600,000. And we sell that for about, I think, I don't think I've even priced it, but that's probably about £12,000.
Oh my goodness.
Absolutely ginormous.
This is ridiculous.
It's not even really a tenth of the price. It's, you know, it really is, probably not even that.
Oh, so beautiful.
It's
I mean, you just forget you're wearing a very big diamond, but it becomes almost like fashion as well. And I think for us women who have, you know, these ideas and we see beautiful jewellery, we can now create beautiful jewellery for ourselves. You know, that's not, that we can pay for ourselves, you know, and go, you know what, okay, I have a couple of thousand, I want to buy something, I want to buy something nice. I can design something, I can get a 2 or 3 carat, you know, and I think that's what's really special, that we can really start to make things for ourselves that we like when we want to.
You've almost like advertised more and appealed more to women treating themselves as opposed to it having to be waiting for a man
like
to
the lab-grown diamond. Obviously, there's men because they're buying the engagement rings, but women are buying jewelry from themselves. Like 70% of our clients are women.
That's
Whereas when I was based at the other brands, there's some mine jewelry brands, it was men, because men were always told to go buy the gifting, the anniversary present. Whereas now women are coming in and designing their own jewelry and buying jewelry for themselves, and that's what's really amazing and special.
That is so empowering, and I feel like that is how we need to spend our afternoon.
Yeah.
Like, right, we need to mark the start of Green Queens with some fabulous diamonds.
Yeah. Imagine on our next episode if we're just dripping, you know, like Phoebe from Friends,
tell us.
she has the crown.
We'll dress you.
This has been so wonderful to chat, and I feel so excited about the future. I mean, it's already been incredible to watch your growth over the last few years, and to know
That's when we first met. You came to see the
I came to
retailer.
this shop before it was a shop, when it was a building site, because we went for a coffee around the corner and you were like, come see the space. So yeah, it's been really, really amazing to watch the growth of lab grown diamonds, but also you absolutely changing up an industry and being a total trailblazer, which is so admirable, and it has not been straightforward for you. So it's really, really nice to be able to give you a spotlight, let you tell a story. We end on the same question for every guest. It's been throwing people off a little bit, hasn't
I know,
it?
we really, really ought to prepare people for this question, so I think we apologise in advance.
Go for it.
What sustainability advice have you been given that you would like to pass on? It can be tip, it can be very small.
It can be diamond or non-diamond related.
Well, it's probably one thing is that we've been told, you know, don't say that you're doing something sustainable unless you really are confident that it is sustainable because of the chain. So you can have someone supplying you something, but actually you don't know the full steps of where that item has come from, and just to really seek out those authentic certificates, I think, around sustainability, because there is a lot of greenwashing out there, and a lot of people just try to tag along to that as well. I'd also say that for us in particular, people know that we are, you know, a huge part of our brand is sustainable. And so other brands that aren't sustainable try to tag along and want to partner with us so that they can tick a box. And I would just say, you know, be careful of those kind of collaborations, because they sometimes, you know, could have an adverse effect on what you're doing as well. So it's quite important to just always, you know, fact check everyone that you're working with. Is really important in terms of their ethics as well.
Yeah.
And your sort of tagline is mindful, never mind.
Mindful, never mind.
And I think that speaks for everything that you do. Everything that you do is so considered and thought of, and I feel like you're not leaving a single stone unturned.
No, everything in this building, there's a justification to it.
Yeah.
You know, there really is. And we want to be more green, as in like we want more foliage in here, and to really plant the seed that, you know, lab grown diamonds, you know, it's really a seed to stone. I mean, that's our other tagline. It's like seed to stone. It's really important to kind of embed that, I think, more into our experience here, I think. But yeah, mindful, never mind. It's, with everything we do, I guess.
Yeah.
Mindful.
Well, I think that is an absolutely brilliant note to end on. Really interrogate those steps in the dance, question those partnerships, and see if anyone is piggybacking on all of the hard work that you've done and do their values align. It's really, really good advice that's applicable to anything that people do, and especially diamonds.
And so if you see us sparkling on the next episode, you know why.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Green Queens.
If you did and you'd like to hear more, we'd be so very grateful if you could like,
Subscribe and join the Green group chat for weekly episodes.